Yo, 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 yo. Welcome back to the channel, people. Welcome back to another live stream. This is episode number five. This is episode number five. And today we are. What's the title of this live stream? Just give me a second because I. What's the title of this live stream? Oh, it's easier. It's easier to stay with the trend, and I'm going to give you guys, some updates on the altcoin market. But welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are having an amazing weekend and happy holidays. Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully, you are having an amazing weekend. Today, we are going to analyze this market with the help of the super trend indicator. So, if you don't know this indicator, you can access it through TradingView. All you gotta do is, go to indicators and just, type up super trend. Super trend should be right here. Simply put, when the super trend give you a sell signal, so like this one right here on the daily, when Bitcoin lost $116,000, that was the time to exit the market, and you will still be out of the market. Maybe shorting the market actually. The only way for this daily to go bullish, the super trend will have to break above $95,000 on the daily. If you go to the weekly, the super trend recently turned bearish once we lost $96,000. So what that means is that the only way for Bitcoin to go bullish on the weekly, based on the super trend, we will have to break above $115,000. So this is a very simple indicator, very straightforward. You don't need to complicate stuff. You don't need to look at different indicators. You don't need to pay attention to, price action. Just simply, every time you get a buy signal, you want to be a buyer. And every time you get a sell signal, you want to be a seller. The last time we actually turned bullish from $22,000. So back January of 2023, the super trend turned bullish around $23,000. And, we saw the price of Bitcoin go from 22,000 to $126,000. And then recently at 96,000, we turned bearish. So if you would have invested based on the super trend indicator, you would have jumped in at $22,000 and you would have exited at 96,000. And this is a 326% profit. A very good trade, a very good investment, if you ask me. So yeah, we're going to analyze this market with the help of the super trend. And if you guys have any questions, if you want me to, clarify something, feel free to put them in the chat, guys. But once again, welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having an amazing weekend. Let's talk about BTC and then we'll get into the altcoin market. So once again, it's a lot easier, if you just simplify stuff and stop overcomplicating this. Stop looking at fundamentals. Stop looking at, other factors. Stop looking at, 10 different influencers. Just stop doing, all these different things that are complicating your strategy. Focus on what is in front of you. Focus on what you can control and focus on, a strategy that is simple and straightforward. If you look at the performance of Bitcoin, since $126,000. On the daily time frame, there's been not a single reason to be bullish on Bitcoin. There has been zero reason to be bullish on Bitcoin since $126,000. Every single one of these rallies right here, every single one of these right here, guys, not a reason to be a buyer. Every single one of them, what we got has been lower highs and lower lows. Every single one of this entire move right here. All right. Every single one of these action. Not a single reason to be a buyer. So you want to make sure that you have a strategy that is simplified, simple to follow, not complicated. So that way, you're not always looking at price when Bitcoin is, when Bitcoin goes from $85,000 to $87,000 and, automatically thinking Bitcoin is bullish again. Not a reason to be bullish on Bitcoin since $126,000. And if you look at the super trend, if we look at the super trend right here, since we turned bearish, $116,000, based on the super trend, we should stay on the sideline. We shouldn't be buying Bitcoin. Now, if Bitcoin was to break out, and we can talk about what that could potentially look like. If Bitcoin was to break above this yellow line, maybe you have a reason to be bullish because, maybe for the first time, or it's not actually maybe, for the first time, we have a Bitcoin that breaks out of this downtrend, and we will have a Bitcoin that could potentially do something different from what we've done, these last couple of weeks. But breaking above this yellow line, it's not enough. You need more than that. We need to break above our last lower high. Right now, the last lower high sits at $94,000. So as long as the price of Bitcoin stays below $94,000, you really don't have a reason to be a buyer. And you should stay on the sideline. And if you still want to participate, the best way to make profits from BTC would be to short Bitcoin. That is the best way to make money from BTC. As long as the chart continues to look like this. Based on the super trend, what do we need to do? Well, Bitcoin is going to have to break above $95,000. If BTC breaks above $95,000, the super trend is going to go from red to green. So we are going to get, one of these right here. Now, just because you get a buy signal doesn't mean the Bitcoin is automatically bullish. Sometimes you do get fake outs. A good example is this was a fake out right here. Even though we turned bullish, price wasn't really sustainable. We were bullish for only a couple of days. Right here, we turned bullish again. Once again, not really sustainable. Right here, we turned bullish again. Not really sustainable. Right here, maybe, this one was better. From $87,000 to $111,000. Okay, much better down here. But this is because, you get a bunch of these fake outs because, we are inside of all these choppiness right here. So Bitcoin doesn't really have a, clear direction, and we're just going sideways. So if you think about performance of BTC from, anytime around December of 2024 until October 2025, Bitcoin has basically been ranging. Like we've ranged between, I would even say $95,000 to $126,000. Okay, but if you go back, we had a really nice sustainable trend right here. Back in October of 2024, around $62,000, we had a buy signal from the super trend, and Bitcoin was bullish from 62,000 until $95,000. So this one was really good. And we also had another one. If you go back here, we were bullish from 27,000 until $40,000. That was really good. Another one right here, we were bullish from 44,000 until 62,000. So the daily is not, it's not really, it's not perfect, but when you zoom out and you go to the weekly, you tend to get more long-term sustainable uptrends, and the super trend, tends to be more bullish for a very long period of time. And this is where, most of the profits are always going to come from. But it's just like any other indicator on the daily or any other lower time frame, because price action is constant, because you're dealing with a short-term time frame, and because the volatility is incredible on those lower time, so you are going to get, a mixture of, a few times when the market is green, a few times when the market is red. Like, you really don't get that consistency. But when you zoom out, when you go to the weekly, that is when you get the consistency. When you zoom out, when you go to the monthly, that is when you get the consistency. I would say the sweet spot is on the weekly. But so anyways, look, going back to talking about trend is your friend, BTC is bearish. All right. If anyone is looking at Bitcoin and saying Bitcoin is bullish right here, I really don't know what to tell you. And I don't know how to help you. Since $126,000, every single rally has put in a lower high. And this is why when you look at my live streams, when you look at my market analysis, I'm not bullish on Bitcoin. I'm not really bullish on the entire cryptocurrency market. Now, I may look at altcoins. I may see something that looks very interesting. But remember, looking interesting and actually proving to us that the market is bullish is two different things. We are talking about two completely different animals. So be careful out there, guys. Don't try to be a hero. If you ask me, I'll tell you not to try to be a hero. I think there's going to be a time to accumulate Bitcoin. But to be very honest with you, I will wait until this weekly super trend bearish is completed, because I don't know how long this is going to take. If you ask me, I think we are looking at something very similar to this. And even if we do get a fake out, I think you might be looking at something very similar to this, where back in early 2021, the weekly super trend turned bearish around $35,000. And then shortly after, we turned bullish again around 54,000. But BTC was only bullish for a couple weeks. And that was the end of the bull market. And then we had a long-term bear market right here. So even if this is a fake out, I don't think we get a Bitcoin that breaks above $126,000 and goes to 200,000. I don't think we get anything like that. I do think you might get a move if this is a fake out. I don't think this is a fake out, but if it is a fake out, you might get a move to maybe 130,000, maybe 140,000, and that is the end of the move. And then we go through a long-term bear market. But we are so late in the cycle that I don't think this is the case. I actually think this is going to be a more sustainable downtrend. Yes, we are going to get a rally, but I just don't see a sustainable rally. If we do get one, more likely it's a day cap bounce. All right, that is basically where I stand when it comes to this market. And, I'm happy to be proven wrong. I'm happy to stay on the sideline. And if I'm wrong, I want the market to prove me wrong. So that is one way to just, stay on the side of the trend, stay disciplined, and not try to overcomplicate stuff. Another way is to simply by looking at the 50 weekly moving average. The 50 weekly moving average, is currently around $98,000. So what I would say is this: as long as the price of Bitcoin is below 98,000, if this is a strategy that you employed, there's not a reason to be a buyer. All right. Throughout this bull market, Bitcoin has respected the 50 weekly moving average. Once we broke above it around $25,000, we had a retest right here. Second retest right here. Retest number 3 right here. Retest number 4 right here. Now, for the first time, we retest the 50, we lost the 50. So I'm not comfortable with the price of Bitcoin below the 50 weekly moving average. I want to stay on the sideline and allow the market to prove to me that I'm actually wrong. I want the price to go above $98,000. I want the price to be above the 50 weekly moving average. But as long as the price is below the 50 weekly moving average, I don't have any business to be bullish on Bitcoin. Why should I be? Why should I be bullish on BTC when indicators I respect, indicators that have been bullish throughout the bull market, are no longer bullish? And if I trust these indicators during an uptrend when the market is bullish, why should I not trust them during a downtrend and when the market is bearish? So I think this is all about simplifying your strategy, whatever that is. If you have a strategy, just make sure it's not complicated. Make sure you're not looking at different stuff. Make sure you're not looking at, make sure you're not doing one thing today and then you're doing something completely different tomorrow. You're looking at a head and shoulders pattern, a different way of looking at the market. Make sure you're not doing any of that. I think there's a way to invest in this market in a very simple way without complicating what is in front of you, and you can still be very successful. Whether that is a moving average, whether that is something like a super trend, whether that is something like, the Bollinger Bands, you want to stick to that. All right. Don't go fishing for something else. There is millions. There's different indicators out there, probably a million of them. And each one of them is very unique in its own way. Each one of them is going to have flaws. Look, you are going to have flaws even if you don't use indicators. Your own strategy is going to have flaws. But as long as you know what is in the strategy and exactly what you look for, your invalidations, your entries, your profit taking targets, as long as you know those things, keep it simple and stay disciplined. I think the downfall of many of us who are in the cryptocurrency market is that we don't accept the reality. The market shows to us, the market turns bearish or bullish based on our strategy, and we try to fight the trend. I mean, the price of Bitcoin goes below the 50 weekly moving average. The super trend gives you a sell signal, but you still want to convince yourself that BTC is bullish. Now you start looking for different reason to continue to be bullish on the market. Now many of you guys are looking at, M2 money supply. Now many of you guys are looking at the Feds. Oh, the Feds, they just cut interest rates. The Feds are going to start injecting liquidity in the market. How do you take that and you mix it with, price losing the 50 weekly moving average? How does that work? So I just think for many of us, we just doing way, way too much. And I think the way to win, the way to stay in this game, the way to stay long-term in this game is by, sticking with a very simple strategy and stay consistent. Forget about making profits, guys. Stay consistent in your analysis. If your analysis is, I'm looking to buy once Bitcoin breaks above the 50 weekly moving average, I'm bullish on the market and I'm looking to sell once BTC loses the 50 weekly moving average, and I'm bearish on the market, you want to stick to that. All right. Don't start looking at M2 money global supply or the Feds, or there's a meeting Trump is doing. No, don't start looking at any of that. That is not part of your strategy, because I promise you there is going to be a million reasons why the market is going to do whatever the market is going to do. And it's very hard to stay consistent, and it's going to be very hard to make profits in this market if that is your strategy. If you have an influencer who analyzes the market and you follow this influencer for the last couple months or couple years, stay with that influencer, stay with their strategy. All right, don't go and look at another influencer who's also talking about the same market, but they have a completely different strategy. You know, the influencer that you've watched since day one, they may be bullish on the market, but this other guy may be bearish on the market. So the question is, are you now going to adapt this other strategy? Are you now going to go from bearish to bullish or bullish to bearish because this person says the market is going to go up? Let's keep it simple, people. BTC is bearish based on my strategy, based on, different stuff that I've tried, based on the way I read this market. I don't have a reason to be bullish on Bitcoin. And even if we do a breakout, it's a breakout on the lower time. It's not a breakout on the weekly. All right. In my view, I'm not excited about this market until price. At this point, the price is got to get above some big target. And I think it's a lot of asking. Looking at the structure of this market, I think it's just too much asking at this point in the cycle. But make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you subscribe if this is your first time, even if it's not your first time. If you just haven't had the time to subscribe, this is the perfect time right here. But let's keep going, because I do want to analyze not just BTC. I do want to analyze altcoins. And again, with the help of the super trend, I may mix with, maybe the Bollinger Bands and whatever else is out there. And I want to try to simplify stuff today and, not complicate stuff. So, yeah, let's move on and, look at something else. I do want to get into the altcoin market. Maybe altcoins we might, I don't know what altcoins you guys are interested in, but I guess we can just combine all of them. Let me see if I have any comments. Can you analyze Coinstock bear market bottom prediction? I can't give you a bear market bottom prediction because at this point it is way too early. But I can talk about targets. So let's take a look at Coinbase right here. So Coinbase, once again, I do want to stick with the super trend today. So Coinbase is $236. I'm looking at the weekly right here. On the weekly time frame, I do think structurally we are still very bullish as long as the price of Coinbase remains above, I'm going to say $150 or $140. I think this is our invalidation. And the reason I'm saying this is because, but I do want to say I don't like this. I don't like the fact that within this pullback to, 290, this was a low right here. Price went back up, and then we failed to break above this $444 resistance. So I don't like this. But trend-wise, I think Coinbase looks really good on the weekly. Long as price, stays above $142. Now, the problem I have is this. If I had a position, I wouldn't want to hold on to my position just because structurally the weekly is bullish and price is above 142. Like, I wouldn't want to do that because I think you lose a lot of your profits if you stay in a position like this. So personally, I would have exit. I think I actually exit my position somewhere around like 350 or 3 whatever. But anyways, if you look at the super trend on the weekly, now this has not been the super trend on the weekly during this bull market has not been the best indicator for Coinbase. I guess the only time you would have captured something would have been, if you had an entry right here from $70 all the way up to 128. Other than that, I mean, look, this would have been a terrible trade right here. This would have been a terrible trade. This would have been a terrible trade. So I'm gonna say the super trend definitely not the best indicator on Coinbase weekly. So I'm gonna get rid of this. I don't think that's going to be helpful to any of us. But what I will say is this though. I will say that right now, in terms of targets, if this pullback continues, my targets are $142. That will be my first target. After that, all right, I have $67. All right. Actually, no, you also have another one right here. 118. That will be another target. And then after that, I have $70. Okay. And then after that, I'm going to have $46 right here. Okay. So if this is going to be a long-term bear market, I think you are more likely, all right, you more likely will see Coinbase retest. I'm going to say somewhere around here, somewhere between $47 and $70. I think we will more likely lose this 120, 142 support, and we will more likely drop into this range right here if this is a long, term bear market. If we go to the weekly, the downtrend is very consistent. All right, we have a Coinbase that is in a clear downtrend, and I don't think there's any reason to, try to get a position. Maybe if you think, we may get a bouncer right here. We actually already got one, and we got, rejected right here around 283, right before 290, which is a major resistance. So if this is a lower high right here, then you are potentially looking at a drop on this weekly all the way down into this $140 support. If we go to the daily, all right, this is the daily right here. Once again, I really don't see a reason to be a buyer, on the daily right here, despite recent price action, positive price action. Right now, Coinbase is retesting this, $236 support. So do we hold it? That to me is a question. If we can't hold 236, then I think we come back and fill this gap right here between 213 and 230. Well, we're almost there anyway. But the target will be $172. This is on the daily, but to me, this is the biggest one right here. 142. That is a weekly target. So I'm going to stick with this one right here. I'm looking at 142. So if we can't hold this 236, I think you're looking at Coinbase coming down to $142. That will be my target. Chat, give me a second. Let me grab something to drink. I'll be right back. Back again, back again. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. So, dun, dun, dun. Just give me a second, guys. Wow. Um. So I think there was a. Can I take a guess on low? On how low ZBCN will go, please? Yeah, sure. Let me talk about that one. But look, I'm just gonna give you my honest opinion because I think it's only right. We try to be honest, even if it's not the most popular opinion. ZB, I don't like it. If you have a position, I look. I don't like the chart. But the question was anyway. This is not about if I like it or not. So let's analyze it. How low? Look, I think if you are patient, now, all right. Let me not say you because this is not about you. Let's just analyze the actual chart. I'm gonna say ZB. There's a very good chance it comes back into this box right here, and more specifically, I'm looking at this like the absolute lows of this range. So we're gonna say 0.000747. That will be my target. This weekly setup is not bullish. This is a bearish weekly setup. This is a lower high. This is a lower high right here. We might get another move. We might get another move up to retest this exact trend line. Maybe something like this. And then get rejected. And then the next pullback, we want to see how this is going to react. You see this low right here. Are we going to hold or do we lose it and come into this range right here? I think that is what we need to wait for. But my opinion is that there's a very good chance, you got to give it some time, ZB comes down into this range right here. And we could potentially retest this, 0.0007427. Now, the thing is this. If we can't hold, you're looking at a project that could potentially go even lower. Now, if we can't hold, you're looking at a project that could potentially go even lower. So I'll give you some examples. If you look at, what are some good examples? There's a bunch of altcoins that are trading below below the lows of their last bear market. There's plenty of them. Let me take a look at Moondang. So if I'm looking at, this one, I mean, these coins are going lower. But there's plenty of examples. I just don't know which one. Let's see, track. Okay, not this one, but yeah, there's plenty of examples. I can't think of one top of my head, but maybe this one. Okay, there you go. This is the example right here. No, not really. But yeah, there's plenty of examples. Look, but we'll see how that plays out. I am interested in why you don't think it honestly. Curious. I'm not like everyone else. Oh yeah, look, I just don't like the chart. I just don't like the look of. I could be wrong, but I just don't like the look of this chart right here. Let's go back. Yeah, this is not something I like. The only way for me to say ZB looks good and it could potentially, retest these high right here, this right here, 007, is if price gets above 5.2. Like right now, you need price to break above this high right here. As long as price, stays above this high, you are just you're just looking at a project that will continue to go down. Like that just it's just technical analysis. You're looking at the overall trend, and as long as you put in lower highs and lower lows, price continues down. Let's take a look at the Bollinger. Look, if you look at the Bollinger Bands right here, I'll give you an example. The blue line you're looking at here, this is my 20. I think this is the 20 moving average. I think that's what it is. If it's not the 21, unless I change. So yeah, that's the 20 moving average. Maybe I can change it to the 21, but it really doesn't matter. I'm just going to keep it the default setting. So if you look at the Bollinger Bands right here, for instance, you don't want to be bullish or you don't want to be a buyer if the price is below this blue line. So between this green and this blue, you don't want to be a buyer. This is bearish right here. You only want to be a buyer, once the price crosses above this blue line. So notice right here, once we cross above the blue, ZB turned bullish. We did get a pullback. And then right here, once we cross above the blue, now this was the biggest move right here. And I think we went up maybe 700%, I believe. It went up 500%. So you want this. You don't want this right here. This is bad. So if we go back to right here, now we don't have a lot of history price-wise, but if you come right here, you can see here the price was trading below the blue line, which is the 20 moving average. And I want you to take a look at how big this drop is. This is a 75% drop. You don't want this right here. It's a lot easier when you're not in a position to just, stay patient. But if you have a position, can you imagine if you have like a $10,000 position and it goes down, 75%? Like that's ridiculous. You don't want to be in that position. So what I would say to you is this. As long as the price is below this blue line, stay as far away from this project as you can. Right? So even if we do go up, we may go up, 30% or 40%. Let's say we go from here up to the blue line. This is almost a 40% move. Even after a move like this is not bullish because here we can get rejected and the next drop, the next drop from right here, just to get back to this range, you're looking at a 36% drop. But if we take out these lows right here, then you're looking at a 70 plus, actually maybe an 80% drop. This is what you're looking at. If we do go up and then we get rejected, I do think at some point we are going to go up because nothing goes down in a straight line. So I am expecting at some point price will go up. But the question is when? And I'll be lying to you if I say I know when we are going to go up. So yeah, hopefully that is helpful. Yeah, appreciate you too as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. And once again, look, hopefully this is helpful. As you can see, look, I'm just using simple indicators and we are just, looking at this market without overcomplicating stuff, without, getting into the fundamentals. And in the cryptocurrency market, personally, I don't care about fundamentals. I know a lot of you guys, not you specifically, you guys that are watching my stream, I know a lot of people, they care about fundamentals. This and that project, they're doing so well. They have so many partnerships. They are going to release this and that. Guys, I don't care about any of that. Show me the chart and I'll tell you exactly what is more likely coming. Now, I'm not going to be 100% right all the time, but if I'm using something like a Bollinger Band, if price crosses above my 20 weekly moving average, I'm bullish on the project. Doesn't matter if they haven't done anything in the last 10 years. If the price goes below the 20 moving average, I'm bearish on the project. It doesn't matter if their recent partnership was with Elon Musk or with Amazon. I don't care about any of those stuff. Okay? If the price goes up because of a breaking news, it's just not sustainable. It's a short-term pump, and then you get a retracement. But when you get a move, without any without any breaking news, without any any of the outside noise, that's when you get a sustainable price action. That's when you get a move like this, like a Zcash, where it goes from $50 to $700. Like, I'm gonna be very honest with you, the best time to buy Zcash was back here, based on this indicator right here, guys. The moment we broke above this blue line and we closed this weekly candle above the green, this was the time to go crazy. This was the time to get into a position. And you would have stayed in your position from 40, even right now, despite this pullback, you're still in your position. Now, of course, you should have took profits. You get in at $40 and you watch price go to $700, you got to take profits. But right now, Zcash on the weekly, based on this indicator, you want to stay bullish as long as the price is above $296. Once we go below $296, then you go bearish, because that is a long-term pullback or a long-term bear market. So I'll give you an example. If you go back to the last bear market, all right, Zcash was bullish until right here. This was the bearish confirmation right here. All right, from 130 something, and price retraced all the way down to $16. Look, if you would have stayed in your position, at one point you would have been down about 89%. Do you want to be down 89%, or do you want to try to avoid it as much as you can? Yeah, this stuff doesn't have to be complicated. Now, the hardest thing about this is discipline. Are you disciplined enough to stick to your strategy? Are you disciplined to say, I am only going to be a buyer when this happens, and I'm going to exit my position when this happens? Are you disciplined enough, not just for one time or two times, but are you disciplined to stay consistent for a long period of time and don't get away from that strategy? Now, if you do develop a different strategy at some point, in your investing or trading career, okay. But even with your new strategy, you have to be consistent. I'm getting in at $10. My stop loss is at 8. My profit target is 20. And I am going to stick to my strategy. Right? You want to make sure that you have a plan. But the question is, are you disciplined enough to follow your plan? Or are you going to allow outside noise to influence your decisions? That is what it comes down to, guys. Technical analysis, putting money in the market, it's really not that hard. The hardest part is discipline. Are you disciplined? Are you consistent? And remember, discipline is not, I've done it one time, I've done it 2 times, I've done it 3 times. No. Are you doing it for a long period of time? Over and over and over and over and over again. Anyways, let's continue with altcoins. Zcash has been, probably the best investment in 2025. I think gold hit a new all-time high, maybe today or yesterday. Silver hit a new all-time high. If you look at silver, Yeah, silver is almost $80. Look, if we are using the super trend, you got a buy signal right here. Silver gave you a buy signal around $22. I turned bullish on silver around 30. That's when somebody asked me to analyze it, and I said, hey, if we can break above this, silver is going to whatever. Look, if this was your strategy, if the super trend was part of your strategy, you would have caught one of the biggest trades in the history of silver from 2023. So you would have jumped in around $22.30. This is in December of 2022. And this is a position that is up about 250%. They have been not a reason, despite these big pullbacks. There's been zero reason to exit your silver position. The super trend gave you a buy signal right here. Then there was a big pullback right after. And then price went up. There was another big pullback. Actually kind of went sideways for like almost 6 months. And then this is a breakout. And then this is a consolidation. And look at this pullback right here. And then you get the breakout. And then this is what we call a parabolic phase. This is the parabolic move right here, guys. Right here. So, not a reason since October or December of 2022 to exit your silver position. Now, sometimes, you get one of these. Maybe you lost money right here. Here you would have bought right here. You would have lost right here because, shortly after that, this turned out to be a fake out. Here you would have got in around $17.63. And then you would have exited somewhere around $23. Now, maybe, if you don't just want to jump in the market because you get a buy signal from this indicator, maybe you mix it with something else. What can you mix it with? Okay, maybe you go with something like this. Maybe you use a trend line. You say, hey, lower highs. This is a nice trend line. Yes, I got a buy signal right here, but because I am still putting in lower highs, I don't want to jump in right here. I'm going to wait for a breakout and a retest of that breakout. Maybe you mix it with something like that. So right here, you would have stayed on the sideline. You would have waited for this breakout, and you would have waited for this retest. But right after you got this retest, maybe you would have bought right here. All right? And then, surely after that, price did go up. It's not going to be perfect. You are not going to get in at the absolute bottom of the pullback or at the bottom of a new uptrend. Right? But as long as you time the trend correctly, as long as you get in when the trend is up, now when the trend is down, you are more likely going to make profits. You are more likely going to make profits as long as you wait for the trend to be up. But let's go back to the altcoin market. And once again, you guys who are watching this and you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button and let's keep it going. Thoughts on BEAT? What is that? BEAT? Empower. Let me see. All right, so I'm assuming this is the one right here. Okay, so I'm on the weekly. I'm just going to analyze the weekly. Just look. All right, I don't know if this is the one that you are talking about or if we are talking about crypto. Is there a crypto? Yeah, I don't know if we're talking about crypto or stocks or something else. If it's crypto, then okay, this right here, oh, this is really good. I don't have a lot of data, but looking really good. On the daily, this looks really good. As long as price stays above $1.11 right here, to me, I'm good. The super trend says $1.22. I'm looking at this low right here. So this is a pullback that's not something you should worry about. If we go down to the 4-hour time frame, let me get rid of. Maybe I get rid of the super trend to get rid of that indicator. So yeah, this looks really good. There we go. That looks good. My bullish invalidation is 1.11, so $1.11. This looks like a really nice breakout. This right here. Okay. I wouldn't jump in right here. I would like to see a pullback. Like I would like to see something like this, and then this will be where I'll be interested in getting in if I was looking at this. So hopefully I'm analyzing the right asset. Yeah, I wouldn't get the reason I wouldn't get in right here is because we are already at a resistance. You never want to be a buyer when price is approaching a resistance. Either you wait for a pullback or you wait for a breakout. So, but this is a nice, this is a nice break out of this downtrend. It's just that we are facing this local resistance of 225. All right, let me jump back into altcoins, and then we'll do the other ones that's in the chat. So altcoins, the last time, which was about, was it yesterday? I think it was, no, not yet. Was it yesterday or? No, not yesterday. I don't think I live streamed yesterday. I think 2 days ago, we talked about some bullish divergency across the altcoin market. So I do want to give you guys an update on that. So yeah, so a few days ago, I think it's about 2 days ago, we talked about bullish divergency across the altcoin market. So let me give you an update on that. Where are we right now? So we're going to talk about AVAX because AVAX had a beautiful bullish divergency. So as you can see, all right, we still have the same bullish divergency right here. As the price of AVAX has been putting in these lower highs and lower lows, RSI has been, putting in higher highs and higher lows. You look at the MACD has been putting in higher highs and higher lows. So this is exactly what I was talking about in terms of altcoins are looking very interesting, and we could potentially get a surprising move. So if you look at AVAX, for instance, over the last couple of days, since breaking out, all right, and pulling back, the price of AVAX has been going sideways. To me, this is really, really good. Now, this is good right here. And I'm looking at AVAX, and I think there's a chance we could potentially get a move to around $18. And I actually talked about this trade right here. You're risking about 10%, and you're going after almost a 50% profits. That is a trade that I would take every single day. All right, I'm risking $1. If I'm wrong, I lose $1. But if I'm right, I make almost about $5. That is a really, really, really good trade. So I'm looking at AVAX right here, and to me, this is looking pretty good. If we look at the super trend, what are we getting from the super trend? Well, the super trend still remains very bearish until the price can break above $14.16. Now, once again, excuse me, this is a super trend. So if this is one of your strategy, you don't do anything until 14 or 14 whatever is broken. All right, 14.14 is broken. But if I'm looking at this and I see this breakout right here, and I see this divergency right here, and I see the RSI on the daily approaching the 50 line, to me, there is a reason to speculate on a potential move. In targets, I'm looking at $18. Now, can we go higher? Of course, guys, but I'm looking at $18. The reason I'm looking at $18 is because when I zoom out and I go to the weekly, I know that in a downtrend, in a long-term downtrend, there's going to be times when the price comes back to retest the 21 weekly moving average. Right now, the 21 weekly moving average is around $18.44. And when you go back to the daily, $18.44, maybe not 44 cents, but $18 right here actually and 40 cents is a major, major resistance. So if we can break above 15.30 cents, your next target becomes $18.40. So what I'm saying to myself is there's a very good chance the price of AVAX goes to $18.40. And this is a trade that looks really good to me, where I'm risking about 10% of my capital. If I'm wrong, I lose 10%, but if I'm right, I make almost 50%. If we go down to the lower time, if you go down to, the 4 hour, for instance, this is looking pretty good. If you come down to this 4 hour right here, I'm going to get rid of the 21. To me, this is looking pretty good right here. All right, look, price broke out. We actually are going sideways. If we, bring up the 200 EMA, we already got above the 200 EMA on the 1 hour. So I think in the short term, there is a reason, to be excited about a potential move to around $18. All right, so this to me still looks really good. Once again, stop loss just right below $11.20 something cents. So that is AVAX. Another trade was SUI. SUI was another one. So SUI, I was looking at $2.25. Once again, if you go to the weekly and you bring the 21 weekly moving average, it is exactly around $2.30. So if you look at the performance of SUI on the weekly, we've gone from $4.40 down to $1.35, literally in a straight line. I can tell you guys right now, this is not how markets operate. There is going to be a bounce. And if I was looking at SUI, I think, thinking about a pullback, because this is a pullback, to retest somewhere around, the mid $2 range, is really not a bad thing. And when you go to the daily, we have some bullish divergences, right? Price has been going down. Yes, lower lows and lower highs. But when you look at your MACD and when you look at your RSI, we are trending up. So something is happening, all right? If you get away from the price and you look at what's happening underneath, There is something positive happening. So what I would say is this. I think the bullish trigger is going to be once this RSI breaks above the 50 line. So the RSI on the daily is currently around 44. I think once the RSI breaks above the 50 line, we are going to get a trigger of this move right here. And if I'm looking at SUI right now, guys, I am risking about 9% of my capital if my stop loss is just right below $1.31. And I'm going after a 60% profits. Once again, you're risking about $1 to make 6. This is a good trade if you ask me. Right? This is a good trade. Now, I do want to make sure that I'm very clear. This is a this is a downtrend rally. So we are trying to trade a market that is in a downtrend. So this is not a market that is trending up, guys. What we are trying to do is we are trying to capture a move back to those long-term moving average. We are trying to capture a day cap bounce on the weekly. This is what we are trying to capture. So making sure that there's a stop loss in place is extremely important. Making sure that there's a stop loss in place is extremely important because the trend is not in our favor. This is not a market that is trending up. This is a market that is trending down. And we are trying to long a market that is trending down. Think about how extremely risky that is. So making sure that there's a stop loss in place is extremely, extremely important. But I wanted to make sure that I give you guys updates from, the last conversation we had. I know a lot of you guys, you may be listening to me talking about how bearish this market is. All right. And then you may be thinking, well, 2 days ago, you sound kind of bullish on the market. Guys, I just wanted to make sure that I explain myself. I am bullish in terms of trying to capture a potential day cap bounce. When you look at the daily, we have something that is called bullish divergency. My indicators, my RSI, my MACD are trending up while price has been trending down. That is normally a really good setup, and price normally goes up after. So right now, I think the trigger is going to be once the RSI breaks above the 50 line. If I'm looking at SUI, if I'm looking at AVAX, I think, basically the same thing. I think once the RSI breaks above the 50 line, RSI right now is currently around 45. So once we break the 50 line, I think that is going to be the trigger, and we could potentially see a move that brings the price of AVAX somewhere around $18. Bring the price of SUI somewhere around $2.20. You want to make sure that you exit this position. If you have a position and you hit those targets, you want to make sure that you exit. I think the moves comes to an end once we hit those targets, and I think we are going much, 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 much lower. And that is actually going to be a very, very good shorting opportunity. If you want to short this market, this is not the time to do it, guys. If you look at SUI, you don't want to short SUI right here. You want to wait for a rally, and then you want to short it right here, and then you want to ride it all the way down to around 46 cents. I think that, to me, will be my next target. So there's other setups, very similar to this AVAX one and SUI. There is CRV. All right. If you look at CRV, once again, bullish divergency. And actually, speaking of CRV, to me, CRV looks really good right now in terms of entries. Daily RSI has broken above the 50 line. We are actually at 53. Price, all right, look at the price right here, chat. Price has broken out. Right? If you look at this downtrend right here. So if I'm looking at this one right here, to me, look, you can put a stop loss. Okay, I don't like a stop loss right here. This is way, way too much risk. Below 33, that's a 16% risk. But maybe a stop loss just right below 35 cents. Like, I like it. A stop loss right there. I absolutely like it. So if we go to the 4-hour time frame, and we are also breaking above, actually, we are also breaking above the 200. We are breaking above the 200 EMA on the 4-hour. Yeah, to me, this to me looks very positive. All right, to me, this looks really, really good. So if you go to the weekly and you look at CRV, I think we could potentially push up and retest, the 21 weekly. 21 weekly is somewhere around 50 cents. So going from right here all the way up to the 21 weekly, you're looking at potentially a 30% move. Right? So if you're risking about, a few percentage, maybe 5, and you're going after a 30% move, I think that is a trade worth taking. And this is why, when you look at the title of yesterday's live stream, or the live stream from 2 days ago, all right, bullish divergency, all right, is the market going up soon? This is worth trading, absolutely worth trading. And I think Dogecoin is also another one. So if you look at Dogecoin, what is the dog coin? Somewhere around here. Dogecoin right here. I want to go back to the daily. All right. Once again, we're looking at bullish divergencies. Now, this one, you gotta have to be a little bit more patient, but the setup is there. All right. This is looking pretty good. I think Near Protocol also, the setup is there. Yeah, setup is right here. Look, right here, guys. Might have to be a little bit more patient, but the setup is definitely there. Damn, what a game, man. Wow. Oh, game is over. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like, subscribe to the channel. Let's oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. Okay. All right, so let me go down. Can you analyze copper and aluminum? Let me see. Yeah, probably. What is the ticker symbols? Let me see. Ticker symbol. Yeah, these things are super bullish, man. Let me get rid of. Okay, we'll get rid of all of that. So this right here, wow, this thing is gonna break. It's gonna break an all-time high pretty soon. Let me go to the monthly. It's gonna break above. Yeah, this looks really good. Wow, it's gonna break above this. Like 5. Is it 590? Whatever 5. Oh wow, look at this big drop in July of this year. Wow. Yeah, we're gonna break above. Once it breaks above 596, which is right here. Once it breaks above, this 596, I mean, it just goes wherever, right? New all-time highs. Potentially goes to, $7, $10 maybe. Yeah, this looks really good. And then what was the other one? Yo, what am I doing? Aluminum right here, already broken above a major resistance, which is this one right here. So this is really good. I'm gonna say target is this all-time high right here. I don't know how long this is going to take because you just never know. But right now, you really don't have much of resistance. Of course, you got one around $3,226. This is the final, like this is the one resistance before all time highs. Yeah, this is crazy. It's already up about 27%. Yeah, this is bullish right here. If you go to the monthly, I mean, this is a clear break. Oh my gosh, man. Look at this. Look at November. November was a clear breakout. So, yeah, this thing is going higher. Yeah, 3,230. And then after that, you're looking at all time highs. Look, we want crypto to look like this, but this is going to take some time. What are your top 5 coins at this? To be very honest with you, I don't have any. And this is something that I'm never going to do again. I did this coming into this bull market. Yeah, I'm never doing this again. Honestly, it's a waste of time because you just never know. Right now, my approach to this market is pure technical analysis. If something looks bullish, I'm going to be bullish on it. Even if I don't agree with the project, even if it's a meme coin, I'm just going to be bullish and, we'll see what happens after. Chat, I was here when Solana was around $8. Now, I'm not saying I should have bought Solana at $8, but I was here when Solana turned bullish on the weekly. When the weekly turns bullish, be a buyer and go on vacation for 6 to 12 months. If you have a great asset that is bullish on the weekly, you have a long-term outlook. So I was here when Solana turned bullish, which was right here. Look, I'll show you guys this because it's not like I'm lying to you guys. I was here when Solana broke above $21. Right here. Now, back then, my reason not to buy Solana was because, the collapse of FTX and everything else that was going on. I looked at it and I was like, the risk is not worth it. I could have bought Solana right here, guys. If I rely on technical analysis and not fundamentals or any of these other stuff, I would have done pretty well. Now, I did pretty well because I was able to accumulate a bunch of altcoins towards the end of the bear markets, but performance was nothing like Solana. So I could have jumped in at 21. I'm not saying I would have exited exactly at 290, but maybe I would have exited around 240, maybe 220. This is 900% returns. All right. My best performance was from not the cryptocurrency market, from the stock market, guys. Clean Spark. I have some options. Percentage wise, that was my best performance in this bull market. Not from the cryptocurrency market, from the stock market. I did pretty well. I got like a 200% profits, if not a 100 something percent profits from Polkadot. I got a 500% profits from Near Protocol. I did pretty well with Jasmy. I did a 10x with Jasmy. I think more than that actually, because my entry was from here all the way down here. But what I'm saying is, I don't have any more top 5. If I look at a chart and it's turning bullish on the weekly, I'm going to be a buyer. I don't care what that asset is. If it's on the weekly and it's turning bullish, I'm going to be a buyer. Because why not? The fundamentals, nobody cares, guys. Nobody cares. Anyways, chat, appreciate you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the live stream. And we'll do this again tomorrow. All right. We are going to do this again tomorrow. I just did almost, I did. Let me see. How long was this? I just did almost a whole hour or something. So, yeah, it's an hour, 15 minutes. Like, I don't want to go any longer. Be patient. And I'll see you guys